Okay, everybody know who this guy is? I just thought of it. Look at this. How will we go on? I forgot to mention it a couple weeks ago. Chuck Norris. You don't know who Chuck Norris is? That's a loss for you. You can go find out about Chuck Norris. He's a legend. He was a martial artist who fought Bruce Lee on Return. What is it? Return of the Dragon? I forget what the name of the movie is, but that's really where he made his name. And then he went into action hero stuff, Barker, Texas Ranger in the 80s, and all these movies of the 80s. I just love those movies. They're so campy, Delta Force, and I'll probably end up buying all of his movies. They're all the same movies. It's the same tough guy, just being tough in these different, like Sylvester Stallone. But anyway, we got these new badges at work that we have to wear around, and they have all these stickers you can put on them, and they're all these like somebody in a tie or some little googly thing, or emoticons and stuff. And I thought, man, what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get about 50 of these little Chuck Norris stickers, because those things will go like that. People have them on their little cards. So that's Chuck Norris. All right, that's enough of that. We're in Genesis chapter 45, 46 at this point, making good time. We're going to end up taking a little over 2 years to get through the book of Genesis, which is not bad because I know people that can't finish Genesis in their entire lifetime when they're teaching it. So there's something to be said for moving quickly through a book. I believe in that, and I would consider a couple of years about right. Some of it we spend more time on, some we spend less time on. But we've been talking about, you don't ever really get past the creation story anywhere in the Bible, or you shouldn't, even in your own life. So we've talked about this, how throughout the biblical revelation, Genesis chapters 1 and 2 animate the Old and New Testaments as the chief premise, the founding principle of all of our knowledge of God and of biblical revelation, up to and including the Ten Commandments. So even if you knew nothing else about God, the divine being, other than he is the creator, if you knew nothing else about him, he would not only be worthy of your worship and service, he would command it as the creator of all things. And that's what makes him king. He is the creator king in that order. Jesus is the creator redeemer in that order. He can be redeemer by virtue of his place above the heavens that he created. So we've delved back into this recently. I don't mind that. We'll probably continue to do it. And we talked about our habitat, this earthly habitat, and we've talked about how physics, astronomers, physicists, and so forth have this idea of a planet being whether or not a planet is in the habitable zone of its star. And a habitable zone is defined as the region around a star where it's theoretically possible for there to be liquid water, as if that's all it takes for a planet to be habitable. And what I made the assertion after we've talked about all kinds of elements of our sun, our solar system, our planet, our solar system, our galaxy, that we are, until somebody proves me otherwise, we are in the habitable zone of the universe. This is the habitable zone. And we are constrained to it. So Genesis chapter 1 and 2 are about creating a habitat. And that habitat is the garden. As God fashions and orders and engineers a universe specifically for the immediate purpose of creating that garden, the habitat for Adam and Eve, which they promptly desecrate, essentially. But anyway, I've been talking also about how we're constrained to this planet. There's all these dreams about going to another star or another planet. It's not just improbable, unlikely that we will go to another star, a planet around another star, like Proxima Centauri. It is impossible that we will go to another star for reasons we talked about. And my own view is we will also not go to Mars.
Yeah,
We
there's
will
a
never-
lot of talk about
Yeah,
that.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the obstacles are insurmountable. And I think they might be by design. And so I was reading, we were talking about the Artemis thing before, the Artemis mission. And I'm in favor of all these missions. I don't have a problem with them in their own context, within their own constraints. But they're talking about a moon colonizing the moon, which you would think, oh, that's right over there. That's 250,000 miles away. Never mind the fact they're outside the magnetosphere, which I think is only 40,000 miles. So you reap the consequences on a barren world with no atmosphere and no magnetosphere. You bear the full onslaught of solar radiation, charged particles, and so forth. But there was another factor that I learned about a day or two ago, which is moon dust. We talked about how on Mars the moon dust is so fine it sticks to, and it's electrostatic and it sticks to everything. So any solar panels, anything you put out there just gets caked with this moon dust because there's winds. And how do you clean these things? And it's going to happen to the suits when people are going to walk around outside and so forth, or any equipment, any equipment outside that's exposed, the grit and so forth. So if you can imagine having a colony in the desert dealing with the sand, now imagine the sand is much, much finer. But anyway, the moon dust issue here, this is what's this guy's name? The astronaut? Apollo, I forget which Apollo it is. Gene Cerman's right here, Gene Cerman. He was talking about the moon dust. It turns out the dust on the moon is not like the dust on Mars because since there's no wind that erodes the edges when these asteroids hit the moon and then melts rock, it creates this microscopic glass shard particles. And so what I didn't know was that when they did their moon exploration, I forget which Apollo it is, but this moon dust would hit these suits, and it turns out that they were only out for a total of 22 hours, 3 different walks, totaling a total of 22 hours. But when they came back in, their suits were already fraying. The shards had gotten into the fibers and so forth. And when they took their suits off, it's electrostatic, it stuck to their faces and so forth. And he's talking about this issue of the moon dust. He says, I think dust is probably one of our greatest inhibitors to an operation on the moon. I look at its statement, how strong it is. I think we can overcome other physiological or physical or mechanical problems except dust. And so they're talking about the troubles of creating a suit that can handle the moon dust. Because what's the point of having a colony if you have to spend all your time, not even talking about dealing with the radiation, extended period in the radiation, right? Because if you're in the International Space Station, you're still inside the magnetosphere. That's low Earth orbit. But out there, you're on it. You're in it. That's it. And those suits are not protection, really.
Protection from.
No, what you need is stuff. You need ground between you and you need to be underground or water, these types of things to protect you. But so they're talking about creating suits that repel the particle, the moon dust, because it's electrostatic, or they're talking about just have replacement suits. And so I was watching this video about how many suits it would take. And if you're going to have a 180-day mission, basically you're talking about 180 suits per astronaut. So there's the cost. And if you're going to have heat protective suits that repel the dust or whatever, the expense and then the extra weight, the larger point is we're back to it again. The forbidding nature of the hostile forbidding nature of our universe outside of the habitable zone, this habitat. He created a habitat in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, and we're finding out just how hostile it is right outside this habitat. It is hostile. And will they ever do anything other than land somebody on the moon for a couple days and then bring them back? I doubt it. But
We have
man,
hostile areas right on Earth.
yeah, yeah. Even on the earth, yeah. And he destroyed it once, and he still managed to make it habitable. But man, this earth is the engineering. People use design, talk about intelligent design, and I would take it further. You have design, you have the architecture of the thing, architecting, and then you have the implementation. You have the engineering, the engineering and the building of the thing. You know, you have the extraordinary structure of some building, the CERN super collider in Switzerland or something. You have the design of it, the architecting, and you have the engineering, and then you have the implementation of it. And at every element of those, we are dealing in miracle upon miracle upon miracle when it comes to Genesis chapter 1. Never mind evolution, the origin of life on planet Earth through chemical evolution. You never even get there without dealing with this fact. The extraordinary marvel of the engineering that went into the habitable zone of our universe, which we are standing on, sitting on. So they're dealing with this again with the Artemis, talking about putting an outpost on the moon. We'll see. We'll see. So here's this is shot from Apollo 11. Moonwalk right here. Click. Old school. Take your camera out, your SLR, click. And then we have the Artemis image. It's higher def, but that's iconic. It's incredible. This can be taken automatically. This here had to be taken by a guy walking out there in a suit, holding some kind of camera with them gloves, getting the shot, you know, and so forth. It's amazing. All right, that's enough. 9:34, onward. Genesis chapter 45, what I've called the most heartwarming story in Genesis, and one of the most heartwarming stories in the Bible, which is the reconciliation between Joseph and Judah over the case of Benjamin, where Judah offers to allow to have done to himself what he did to the man standing in front of him, Joseph, who he didn't know was Joseph at the time. It's not like Judah thought, well, I have a feeling this is Joseph, so I'm going to impress him by saying that I'll go into slavery instead of Benjamin. He didn't know any of that. It was a moment, the sincerity of it is indicated by the spontaneity of what he did and the emotional nature of it. You can see him standing there as Joseph says, I'm taking him. You guys can go free. This is after the cup incident, when he plants the cup in Benjamin's bag as a pretext for claiming Benjamin, which is, I think, what he wanted. He wanted Benjamin. He's not going to let him go back. And so Judah's watching this unfold, and Joseph, the governor, has pronounced judgment. I'm taking him. He's going to be my servant. You're going back to Canaan. Have a nice day. And Judah spontaneously and emotionally just falls down before him and says about the only thing he can say to save the day, considering who he's talking to, which is, let the boy go free and take me as a slave, says Judah to the man he sold into slavery. And so it's an extraordinary moment in the history of redemption. It pictures self-sacrifice, you know, these things. It's never referenced in the New Testament as any kind of, bearing any relationship to Christ, but it's there in the line of Christ. I just pointed out. Joseph is overwhelmed, and he reveals himself and develops maybe a new plan. He says, all right, I'll take you all. Rather than just Benjamin, I'll go ahead and take you all. So he reveals himself. Can Can you do me a favor and reach in my jacket and get me a Ricola, a cough drop? It's the one, it's the inside one, the windbreaker one on the inside. Thank you. Where was I? So they're, yeah, so they're gonna, his new plan appears to be, it appears to be something that comes to him, thank you, comes to him as rapidly and, what's the word, spontaneously as his plan for Pharaoh, where Pharaoh asks him to interpret the dream, and failure might be bad for Joseph. So then not only does he interpret the dream, but he immediately, without hesitation, then gives him the master plan for how to make it through this famine that's coming up. And everybody just stands there probably stunned. And so he does the same thing here. This plan that he has for the family just comes out. I don't get the sense that he'd been thinking about this a long time. He just, with this new information, with what Judah just did, he just, boom, here's what I'm going to do. It's completely in line with Joseph's, I don't know what you want to call them, talents, wisdom. We talk about Solomon's wisdom, but man, Joseph, he got a lot of wisdom. And he also didn't fall like Solomon did. But anyway, so now he's going to tell them to go back to Canaan, get everybody, bring everything. He's going to tell Pharaoh. Pharaoh's going to double down and take it one step further. You will get the best of the land. Verse 20. That is Pharaoh talking. Now he's commanding Joseph to bring them all and give them the best of the land, eat the fat of the land. Verse 18. And he's going to send an escort. He's going to send the wagons and so forth. And so this is the way the book of Genesis is going to end on this this ironically joyous journey into slavery. It's not like these brothers understand that, and they don't know that it's going to go south down the line. They just, right now, they're worried about the immediate future because the family's in mortal jeopardy. And if the family's in mortal jeopardy, then the covenant promise is in mortal jeopardy. And we've talked about these, must have hit up, escape. We've talked about these threats to the covenant promise right here. They're all over the place in the book of Genesis as obstacles to the covenant or threats to the covenant are placed in the way through the unfolding circumstance, unfolding drama. And then we watch sometimes the visible hand of God, sometimes the invisible hand of God weave through these obstacles and take the promise, the family and the promise safely through the threat. And so here we have one again, and that is the famine that obviously Joseph thinks the family won't survive. All right. Then you have this curious statement. He just knows his brothers. 24. Do not quarrel on the way. Why would you say that? He hadn't seen these people in decades. He figures, yeah, I'm impressed with Judah here, but I know you people, just in case. Now I'm speaking to you as the governor of Egypt. I command you, get along with each other, or something like that. It's a new day. So they go tell Jacob, Israel, and you get his wish. What is he aware of? He knows the covenant promise, but what is on his mind? He doesn't say. This is an argument from silence. He doesn't say, oh, goody, the promise is saved. God is going to bring everybody back at some point into the land of Canaan. He's thinking about the immediate future and Joseph. Mm-hmm. It is enough. I will go see Joseph before I die. That's the thing on his mind. Very real, very emotional. Nobody's thinking really long term. They will be. Joseph specifically, Jacob and Joseph both will. We'll see that by the end of the book, but that's the story, reaching the high point. Joseph was at the bottom sometime in those 2 years that he spent in prison. How long ago was that? That 41? Yeah, right there, man. 40. When he gets left behind by the baker or the cupbearer. That sad statement in 23. Chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. That's his low point right there. Chapter 40. And then 41 and following are going to be Joseph's rise, where he will eventually say, God has caused me to forget all my troubles and my family. He's Egyptian. He's on his way, but he's not factored in, it appears, the divine plan, nor did he need to know it. We don't know what God is doing. We know what we need to know when we need to know it. And most of the time, we don't really need to know anything because he's the one working, not us. And so that's the situation here. And it finally reaches this high point. It finally reaches this high point as Israel, uses Israel here, not just Jacob. So you get nationhood, the name that is associated with nationhood, with a people for God's own name, Israel, used right there in 46. And now they will journey southwest to Egypt, specifically Goshen. I've done a lot of talking. I've been talking for like 20, 25 straight minutes. So let me get my notes. I did all that with no notes. I wonder if I had anything interesting in my notes. Okay, let's do the first few verses here. As the family makes its migrates, it's not temporary. You don't take everything if you're only planning on staying a little while. So what were they thinking about Canaan and the promise? Well, God's going to make sure right away, he's going to take care of that for Jacob, the family, and the readers. Egypt is not going to be your home. You're not staying there forever. I got a plan, but just so you know, you're migrating, but this is temporary. Egypt, you're not going to be Egyptians. You're going to be your own people, and you're going to be your own people on Canaan. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba, the south part of Canaan, and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. There's that reframe that will be used repeatedly. By the time of Jesus, it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, really, by the time of Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it's beginning to take shape now. That's how he identifies himself with Jacob. It's not the first time. Jacob clearly had, I think, the most number of visitations by God. Abraham had a couple that we read in the narrative, but Jacob, man, he's on Jacob from the time he leaves Canaan to go to Paddan Aram to get away from Esau. And when he comes back, he gets another visit on his way back. And then he gets another visit when he's at Shechem to go up to Bethel. Yes, over and over and over again. So here it is again, just in time. Visions are just in time service, like the food at Meijer. They don't come too early. They don't come too late. They come just in time. And so he didn't get this visit before Joseph, before any of this happens. It's not like Jacob knew in advance because God appeared to him and said, this is what's going to happen. It's just visions. These visions are always very sparse in detail. We're going to go back and look at 12 in a minute. But just in time, just as he's leaving, he gets the reassurance and the vision. God spoke to Israel in visions of the night, said, Jacob, Jacob, said, here I am. I mean, what else are you going to say? Yes, sir. I don't know. He said, I am God, the God of your father. Which father? Isaac or Abraham? Doesn't matter, I suppose. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt because I'm already there, because I went down with Joseph in the first place. That's a little bit about the first person who understood that there was a new God in town, the God who was not constrained by national borders, by geographic boundaries or geographic bodies, the God who wanders anywhere he wants. The first one who knew that was that jailer. I'm sorry, the captain of the guard, who figured it out with Joseph. Said, I'm being blessed because of the God of this man is blessing me because of this man, Joseph. So I'm going to put him in charge. And so he recognized that something had changed. The jailer is going to recognize the same thing. Pharaoh is going to recognize the same thing. I see something here with this man. And so there's a new deity in their minds. This Yahweh, this God of Joseph, that we want the blessing of. And that's exactly, I'm sure, the way Pharaoh thought of it. When Joseph, when they're experiencing all this plenty in the first 7 years, yeah, they understand that Joseph is the human architect of this, but without question, because of the vision, because of the dreams, they understood that Joseph was a conduit for his God in some way. I'm thinking out loud about this, but that's probably how they thought of it. And so they want to keep the blessing of this deity, this God. And so when Pharaoh finds out about the family that Joseph has, and there's been a reunion, he's more than happy to invite that family in because he wants the blessing of this God to continue. And maybe by bringing them all in, he gets even more blessed. So yes, some of it is probably gratefulness, and some of it is just, it's self-interest for the nation and for him. So I will make you in a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. There it is, right there. And Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. So you remember chapter 45 ended with, I will go down to see him before I die. God, yep. You will see Joseph before you die. He will be at your bedside. But we have here this little statement, I will also bring you up again. Well, we know that Jacob is not coming back. I will make of you a great nation. I will go down with you and I will bring you up again. Well, who is you? Because he's going to say in just a second that Joseph will be at your bedside when you die. That'll happen in Egypt. So you have this idea here of Jacob standing in the place of the nation. He's going to bring the nation back at some point, not Jacob, which is important to Jacob. These guys had a sense of posterity and family heritage that we have no concept of. Lots of people, one of the big problems I think we have in the United States is lack of concern for the next generation. It's all about retirement. We want that retirement. And you will hear people say, I've heard it before about, well, what about the debt? What about the debt? What about this and that? Well, I'm not going to be here. Well, yeah, but what about your kids? Well, I don't know. I don't even have any kids. How come I'm the one worried about the kids? I had this argument with this person at work. This person was concerned about the stock market. and retirement and she's got kids. And I said, well, what about the kids? She wants retirement. And I said, what about her? And I was pointing at a woman, a coworker who she's in her 20s and she's getting married soon. But what about her future? And she didn't have anything to say about it. And I said to her, how come I don't have any kids, but how come I'm the one that's worried about them and you're not? I don't understand. But that's the times in which we live. Well, they didn't have that. What mattered you could see it with Jacob and Esau and Isaac. It was extremely important to Isaac. There's a reason he was so traumatized when he found out that he was really talking to Jacob and not Esau. Because, man, that family, the family lineage continuing and all of that was everything. And you pick it up in Egypt with these pyramids that they spent decades making, and for the Pharaoh's burial and other things, because of the sense of continuity, whatever you think of what they were doing with that, because pharaohs were often treated as gods. But it's that idea that your name and your line transcends you. It's larger than you are, and it continues on down the line. Really matter to these people. That's why that land was so important that they lived on. In Rome during Jesus' time, a lot of apartment dwellers, because that's all you couldn't buy land. There's no future in the apartment. There's no roots. It's transient. It's the definition of transience to live in an apartment. These people had this idea that the land that they were on, if they owned it, that was theirs for generations into the past, and it was going to be there for generations into the future. That's the way they thought. So it's a relatively new thing in Western culture, where we're now, we're apartment oriented livers. Livers, not as bad word. We've got an apartment mindset where you just live in this apartment for a while and in that apartment for a while. You're living everywhere, but at home nowhere. That's how we are. And I've said this before. It's the difference between the end of Wizard of Oz, that message, the purity of that message. Does anybody remember? No place like home. She keeps repeating it. In the middle of the Great Depression, where's home? Home is back on that farm where Auntie Em is. That's home. That's where she wants to go. So she wakes up back at home. And she doesn't want to look any farther than her own backyard. That's one of the lines at the end of the movie. And everybody's around. But anyway, that's been replaced by an apartment mindset. Home is where the heart is. It's just a transientness about that idea. We're a nomadic people in that sense. We're living everywhere, but we're at home nowhere. We're just on the move.
If you're an RVer, you can say home is where you park it.
Home is where the parking is. Yeah.
Where you set your stuff for the night.
Yeah. Yep. That was me, man. I was I don't know how many apartments I lived in from the time I graduated college. I was in the Navy for 8 years. Excuse me. And then Campus Crusade for Christ for 7. But that was just apartment after apartment. Never more than a year. Maybe 2. So on the other hand, I bought a house I hate and I've lived there for 24 years. So okay, I don't know why I said all that. Let's keep going. It's the context here. God is building a people. He's shaping a people for his own name. And this is the next step. He will take them to Egypt, and they will not understand, maybe never understand, why he took them to Egypt. But we'll talk about that when we get to Exodus. Why did he do it this way? I don't know. I can tell you the result of it. I can tell you functionally how it helped to shape a people of God. But the why, he never tells us. We're gonna go look at 15 maybe, and we'll look at 15 here. Let's see. Know for certain that your offspring will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. I'm so used to reading the New American Standard. Will be enslaved 400 years. I will judge the nation they serve, and afterward they will come out with many possessions. Why? He doesn't say. He can do anything he wants. He can make a people of God any way he wants to make a people of God. This was his way. And as a result of his way, people to the current day marvel at the result. And we are the result. Shaping a new people of God that includes Gentiles as well as Jews on an equal footing before God. All of that went into it, but it's not like he was constrained in how he operated. But this was the plan in the mind of God. Put it, it's a question you can ask at the great press conference in the sky someday. You probably won't get an answer. Anyway, this statement right here, I will make you into a great nation. I will make you into a great nation. Right out of Genesis chapter 12. So he had mentioned the father. I'm the God of your father. Then he says, I will make you a great nation, referencing something God said to Abraham. At the very first thing in the narrative that God ever said to Abraham, I will make you a great nation. She repeats it word for word. But he adds one little statement. There, right? That word right there. Egypt. For there, I will make of you a great nation. He held that back from Abraham. He didn't tell Abraham that. Go forth from your country and from your father's house, your relatives and father's house, down to the land that I will show you. For I will make you a great nation in another land, and then bring you back. None of that. It's just I will make you a great nation. Just in time service of knowledge here, right? He gets what he needs. And then here, just in time, Jacob can understand that Egypt was the plan all along. And now this promise in chapter 12 gets a little more specific. It's beginning to unfold. And so we see now the destination for the book of Genesis from chapter 12 on. The destination, I will make of you a great nation. Well, if that was going to happen in Egypt, then Egypt always had to be the destination of the book of Genesis. It's just ironic that Genesis will end not with them being a great nation, not with the fulfillment of the promise of the covenant in chapter 15, where they're in Canaan again, but it's going to end with them a slave people in Egypt. And they'll be lucky to be there, so to speak. And I myself will go down with you to Egypt. Of course, I'm already there. I've been working for decades making this happen. This is just the next step. And then you're going to die there, and Joseph will be there. So yeah, you're going to get your wish. Your prayers will be answered. The prayers you could never offer because you didn't know that he was still alive. But I knew he was alive. So I've been planning this moment all along. Let me check my notes. Does anybody want to say anything about that?
As God told Jacob not to be afraid, do you think he stopped in Beersheba because he was a little hesitant to leave?
He stopped. He's an interesting case because what does he do when he flees from Esau?
the Rome.
He, before he leaves, what chapter is that? What's the Esau chapter? Hmm. No, I need the headers that I attack all the time.
He was sent to Laban in 28.
Yeah, right here. Jacob left Beersheba, comes back to Beersheba. Beersheba is a holy site. It's some kind of sacred family place like Bethel, which is where he's going to be here. Went toward Haran, stayed there the night, laid his head down, and then he had a dream.
So this is the spot he goes to check with God.
Well, this is going to be Bethel, isn't it? Isn't this Bethel?
Renamed
Yeah, there, what, something like.
19.
19? Yeah, there it is. He named the place Bethel. So on the way out of Canaan, God appears to him. On the way back in, before he sees Esau, God appears to him. While he's in, after that ridiculous story about Dinah and the destruction of the Shechemites, God appears to him, tells him to go back to Bethel, where he offers sacrifices. I think he offers sacrifices at every one of these places. And that's where they recommit themselves. They renew their loyalty, their service to Yahweh. Yahweh's now going to be the family God. And that's when he tells his family, that weird statement, I think it's 35, all the way into 35. After all that, he says to the brothers, to the family, now put away the foreign gods among you. And you go, what? What is wrong with these people? Right? I mean, I don't know whether they did it, but I know those gods are going to be a problem. Well, always. And so now, when anytime there's a big move on his part in his life, this is the thing that happens. God appears to him and there's a vision and there's sacrifices. In this case, though, the sacrifices, it's hard to tell, but it looks like the sacrifices in the narrative, we're chronological thinkers, right? So we assume that he offered the sacrifices before the vision, but not necessarily. It could be that he offered sacrifice as a consequence of the vision. But this is the way it goes.
That Beersheba.
Beersheba.
Time, not
Yep.
that.
So it's Beersheba. Let's see. Beersheba, Bethel. I don't know where he was when he came back out of Paddan Aram. I don't know where that was happening. Comes back to Shechem, then back to Bethel, sacrifices. And now he goes back to Beersheba, sacrifices on the way out. So it's some kind of commemoration. Yeah.
That do not be afraid kind of makes me think he was hesitant.
Yeah, I mean, we know the whole story, but this is his entire,
Because he didn't, but
I mean, this is his entire, this is everything. They're taking everything. So everything is on the line.
He went to Mahanaim.
Mahanaim. Oh, that's right. He named it. And what else? What happened at Mahanaim and later in Second Samuel? An important city. For subject matter, right? Nothing beats subject matter. What happens in Second Samuel in Mahanaim? Why is it important?
Someone.
Close. Except Saul's dead by Second Samuel.
Like
Mahanaim is the city that David fled to get away from Absalom when he went on the other side of the Jordan. That would be the base of operations where he will take back the kingdom. Okay. Verse 7, let's keep going here. So Jacob set out from Beersheba. Let's take a look here. Here's the movement. Make this a little big. So that's the movement, the overall movement of the promise, the covenant promise, the family of Terah, Abraham's father, the family of Abraham, and now the family of Jacob. And so this tracks not just the family, but the specific lineage of the promise. And more and more, the promise and the lineage of the promise that will inherit, they track together. And so we're going to leave now behind. There's no more talk about an Ishmael or an Esau, a Lot, all these other threats to the covenant. All those have disappeared, and now there's just safety, short-term safety, in Egypt for the heirs of the covenant. Okay. Jacob set out from Beersheba, the sons of Israel. Ooh, look at that statement. Nationhood right here, right? The sons of Israel. Nation shaping up into a 12 tribes kind of formula. Carried Jacob, their father, their little ones, their wives, and their wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry them. They also took their livestock, and this really labors it. Their goods, which they had gained in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him. His sons' sons with him, his daughters, his sons' daughters, all his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. Twice he says it. This is the migration of a family and a nation from one place to another. So if they're going to come back to Canaan, it can only be by the divine plan, by the intervention of God, which they will do. Now we're going to get into a genealogy. So if you ask the question, hey, how come it said these are the records of the generations of Esau? These are the records of the generations of Seth. These are the records of the generations of Cain. These are the records of the generations of Terah. But there is no, these are the records of the generations of Abraham. Nor is there these are the records of the generations of Jacob. Because the story is the record of the generation. In all of those other cases, those are genealogies. In the cases of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's an unfolding drama that he's going to narrate detail by detail. But here he's now going to repeat. He's going to list. You're going to get your first chronicle of the family. You're going to see it again in Numbers. Really matter to these people. But here's the first of it with the 12 tribes. So we'll go ahead and read it because I'm obligated to do so. And I want to get through these genealogies so I don't have to do it twice. Because I don't have a lot to say about it, except why it's here. These are the names of the descendants of Israel who came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons. So now he starts listing sons. He will list the matriarch of the sons last. And notice the first matriarch up is Leah. All 6 of Leah's sons. She didn't have, they weren't the first 6 born, the first 4 were. But then there was a break. So Leah, this is not the first time, Leah gets pride of place in terms of the family lineage, even though she was the unfavored wife. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, oh, here we go, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi, who never get mentioned again. The sons of Simeon, Reuben was the one who slept with Bilhah, who was Rachel's concubine. Awesome. Did I get that right? Somebody tell me if I got that wrong. No, I'm right. The sons of Simeon. Simeon was the one with Levi who exterminated the males of Shechem. Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, and Zohar. And Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman, he throws it in there. Authors regularly point out that some of these wives and sons and so were not natives. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, the sons of Judah. That's a infamous family history right there. Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. And Onan died in the land of Canaan. That's a nasty story. That led to the Tamar story because Judah didn't give Tamar to Shelah, the third son, like he was supposed to, the Levirate marriage thing. And so she tricked him by pretending to be a prostitute, which produced Perez and Zerah, the last two, who will be eventually will result in the birth of whom? Christ. Which one? Not even sure I remember. Perez. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamuel. So now we're down to 3 generations. The sons of Issachar, who didn't do anything in the narrative as far as I can tell. Tola, Puva, Yab, Shimron, and the sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Paddan Aram, together with his daughter Dinah. Altogether his sons and his daughters numbered 33.
I don't see that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they counted. They kind of counted different. There's going to be a reference to 10 sons of Benjamin. So obviously he's counting sons of Benjamin that happened in Egypt, I think. I don't know any other way to read it. Unless somebody else is.
But these are the descendants who came into Egypt.
That's what it says. But these people didn't think like we do. I mean, the distinction to them is not the same way we think of these kinds of things. These are Near Easterners, Orient. It's a different way of thinking. The sons of Gad, now we're into a new line. Ziphian, Haggai, Shuni, Esben, Eri, Eridai, Erilai. If you don't like the way I'm saying these names, then you can come up and do it. The sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Beriah, with Sarah, their sister. The sons of Beriah, Heber, and Malkiel. And they're the sons of Zilpah, who was the concubine, was the maidservant of the female slave of Leah in the little war over having children, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob. 16 persons. So the wars between the wives, so to speak, is all going to disappear into history, and all you're going to end up with is the 12 tribes. Sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife. So that's Jacob, Rachel, the favored wife, is the third one mentioned, not the first. Joseph and Benjamin. To Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim from who? That's her name. Yeah, that is her name. Yeah. Daughter of the priest. There's a daughter of the priest. It's right there in front of me. I do that a lot. You're reading it. Sorry. The daughter of Potiphera, the priest of On, bore to him. The sons of Benjamin, here they are. Bela, Beecher, Ashbel, Jira, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim. Some of these names don't come into English very well. Huppim,
They were twins.
Ard. These are the sons of Rachel, who were born to Jacob. 14 persons in all. Well, Benjamin is a child in the narrative. So he knows that. The writer knows all this. He's doing this on purpose. So, I got to go back and read some more commentaries on this. The son, I'll finish this off so I don't have to do it again. The son of Dan, Husham, he only has one. The sons of Naphtali, Jeziel, Guni, Jezer, and Shelem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, so she's a female slave. And these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own descendants, not including Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all, and the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 7. So that's the number. And there's lots of debate about how to come up with 70 here. Maybe we'll talk about, I need to do some more looking into this. See how on earth this comes up to 70. There's other traditions, there's other writings in the ancient Hebrew, in the ancient Jewish tradition. 75, the rabbis and so forth, they come up with, I don't know. I don't really care all that much. I'm just, I've got to teach it. So here we are. But that's the family lineage going in. You can see the point. That's the point. That's the point of the point, that you see now the migration of the whole of the 12 tribes of Israel. Not just a family group, the patriarchal tribe of Israel, 12 tribes migrating to Egypt as 12 tribes. That's the point. And we'll probably talk about this next time, right? Where is it? Where's my magical there? We'll get back to this a little bit. No, that's not it. I'll find it. It's a diagram that looks like this that I can't find. This is Paul. Anyway, we'll stop there. It's 10:18. I went over. But we'll finish off chapter 46. Get into 47. Think about what you want to do this summer a little bit. Phil thinks we ought to do some how we got our English Bible stuff from the first century to today, which I'm capable of talking about for a whole summer. So we can do that. He wants to actually hold an entire church Sunday school for that. But anyway, that's it. We're done. Thanks for joining. Naomi, Nate, Gabe, Stacy.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep.
Gary.
Hey,
Thanks,
all.
Gary.
Hey, you're out there. Thanks for joining, Robert and Laura.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye.